Morning, everyone. Well, firstly, I don't want to be too formal. I don't want to make you think that packaging holidays is actually too hard. I want to sort of make you feel comfortable when you start bundling or putting things together that you know what you're doing. And what I thought we would talk about today is to talk about what makes a successful package. We get a lot of new companies who come to ABTA who want to start up, they want to, they might have got a good idea. We get surf schools, we get ski companies, we get cookery schools, we get yoga, and they want to then start selling that. And then what they do is they enter into it by going to a hotelier, possibly adding transport, adding flights, and then that becomes a package. So we want to talk to you a little bit about that, but we don't want to be too formal. And then we want to talk a little bit about our own successful collaborations. What does ABTA do? What does it do for members? And what does it do for travel and tourism in general? So when we were asked to present today, we were thinking about, well, what makes a quality product? What makes a successful package? And my background is sales and marketing. I do head up member engagement at ABTA, and travel is complex. You do need to do the paperwork. So firstly, you do need to think about your quality products. The products that you put together and you want to collaborate with, do they reflect your core service? It doesn't make sense to have a 2-star product if you're marketing a Michelin cookery skills, for example. You've got to think about how you're putting your product together. You also need to understand your market, how many people are currently in the market that you want to go into, how many companies are actually operating something that you want to operate. Have you thought about doing a SWOT analysis, which sounds technical, but it's just looking at strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats of that product. What's the gaps? Can you fill that gap? That's the sort of the research you need to do. And it doesn't have to be hard. You can do that in the back of a fag packet in the olden days. That's easy to look at. Other thing is, know your customer. Who is your decision maker? Are you marketing to a female audience? Are you marketing to a male audience? What is the average age of your customer? These are all things that you need to look at, and you do need to understand your product. What puts aside a successful company versus maybe a non-successful company, or somebody who doesn't have the experience, is your contracting, the paperwork you have, the paperwork that you give your customer, and more importantly, what happens when things go wrong? Do you have the out-of-office numbers of your own employees? Do you have the out-of-office number of your suppliers? They're all things that help you put a good package together. From the booking, from right at the beginning, when you're putting the services together, to actually when the customer's actually in your holidays, so it's whether in your hotel or experiencing your surf school, have they got a good contact? Is that person who is actually representing your product, does it represent everything that you want to present? So we then get into the legal side of collaboration, and the key thing here is to think about, where are you in that supply chain? Are you at the customer end? Are you the person who's having the dealings with the customer? Or are you a supplier at the end of that supply chain? Because when you're starting out, you need to know that, because that has a big impact later on about your legal position. You need to make sure that you've got insurance in place, because unfortunately we are in an area of the market now where people are sued regularly. We at ABTA had over 11,000 complaints last year of travel companies, and that can be from anything, from something where they feel they've been missold. So the product, the description that they were actually brought into actually didn't appear as such. It could be that there was errors in terms of what actually was in the product. So you do need to think about your actual risks. Have you got principal liability insurance in place, for example? Other things you need to be aware of are consumer regulations. Whether any product that you're selling, the consumer has really strong rights. And you need to be aware of that into account of the prices that you're charging and the product description. That's another big thing we get, where customers feel that they've been missold, the price was incorrect, they bought in and it might have been sold at £200 to begin with, but as part of that price journey, the non-optional prices weren't included. So it could have been an extra price for a transfer, it could have been an extra price for entry into an excursion. If that's not clear, you're not winning that customer over to then get the repeat business. The other thing you need to be aware of is if you're advertising that product, you need to make sure that you've got a sufficient number of holidays or products at that price. If you don't, you can be reported to the Advertising Standards Authority. So that's some of the things you need to be aware of there. Once you've decided where you are in the supply chain, you've got to then start thinking about how do you trade. An agent or principal is legal terms, I understand that. But actually what that means is, in your business, who has the contract with the customer? Is it yourself? If you have a contract with the customer, then you, in a legal perspective, are the principal. You take on that liability. If you're acting as an agent for your services, the liability is really quite different. So you need to clarify that at the outset. The difficulty in travel and tourism at the moment is that those two areas in the legal area, it's blurring. And because of that blurring, banks and insurance companies and merchant acquirers are shying away from dealing with travel companies. So at the outset, you have to make sure what you're doing. Other key areas you need to be aware of, if you're collaborating with a service provider and that's transport, then you've got to think about what happens, what's your liability if that transport's delayed. So when we're talking about flights or coaches, if there's a delay of over 12 hours, then you have to then provide compensation. Then you have to think about cancellation charges. So what happens? You've collected full monies. Do you have is it clear in your terms and conditions? What's the deposit? What is final balance? You know, what's the cancellation charge if they were going to cancel 6 weeks before departure? What would they cancel 2 weeks before departure? You just need to think about those things. And there's so much more in that particular space that I can't present that in 5 minutes. At ABTA, we have over 55 guidance notes on this subject. So it's something that you just need to be aware of. One thing that's changed last year is that if a consumer has got a person of reduced mobility, they've got particular rights. And as you, as a person selling to this audience, you've got to make sure that you're picking up that information, that you know that they might not be able to walk 20 paces. They might not be able to walk the steps to the room, for example. So you need to make it clear. Last year, I had a cycling company who was doing cycling in Mallorca, and they were saying to me, well, I've got to update my website to make it ABTA speak. And I laughed and said, look, it's not ABTA speak. You've just got to make sure that the people who come on your holiday are fit. So you've got to say, how far are you cycling every day? Is it 20 kilometres a day? Is it 50 kilometres a day? You've got to specify that. Other things, another member was caught out. He had a guest who had a visual impairment. He didn't realise it. They didn't have a walking stick. They read emails, saw the person in person, really did not see anything different. But the person went to went to get on their flight. They came with a stick, and they were sat in an emergency exit row. So the airline wouldn't carry them. So they were put into a difficult position. So you need to be aware of all of that. Also with your websites, if you're selling on websites, it's great to have a website. You don't necessarily have to have a full automated digital enhanced website, but it's a good way to get that social media, to get your product visible in a bigger audience. But you've then got to make sure that your website reflects your terms and conditions. It clearly states what the products that you offer. So as we go on, you then need to be aware of package travel regulations if you then are starting to organise holidays. Now, if you're organising something which is a total price, so you're selling your hotel, you're selling a piece of activity, you might be selling some theatre tickets, it's all included into a total price, that is a package. If you're selling something which is over 24 hours or includes an overnight stay, it's a package. If you're selling things separately, so you're selling your accommodation separate, you're selling your theatre tickets separate, you might be acting as an agent, then you're not becoming a package organiser, and it's different liabilities. So that's why it goes backwards. You have to make sure where are you in that supply chain. So once you know that you're packaging holidays, you need to be aware of that, because then you have to purchase principal liability insurance, because then you are personally responsible if anything goes wrong. So that's a key thing that you need to know. And you need to make sure that you're applying with package travel regs. You need to make sure that you're doing bonding. The bonding can be a bank bond, or it can be insurance, but you have to provide that financial protection to the customer, and you have to comply to the package travel regs. The big thing here is there's a lot of terminology. And that's where, we can come in, or another approved body, to help you with that terminology, because it is complicated. So, for example, a non-licensed package, I didn't know that. I had an airline background before I joined ABTA, is something which doesn't include flights, but it's ground transportation. A licensed package is when you've got a flight, so if you're bringing in passengers in to Northern Ireland, they came in, you've got to have an ATOL license. You can't sell flights to any British consumer if you don't have an ATOL license. So that's some of the formal stuff, that's the legal side, but then you've got the financial side. We've done a lot of work with members about this, and one of the biggest concerns, it's the biggest extinction event of companies, is VAT. If you're collecting money on behalf of your customer, so you're collecting a debit, the customer's paying the services by debit or credit card, the government at the moment is saying that you have to pay VAT on that, but we're actually lobbying against it to say that you shouldn't pay VAT. You're collecting on behalf of somebody else. It's a financial service if you're acting as an agent. So we're actually going to HMRC all the time, and there's 2 big cases coming out in the next month or so. We'll actually determine whether you do have to pay VAT or not. But at the moment, you have to pay it, and then you have to put a claim in for the last 4 years to get the money back. Other things you need to be aware of, which is really complex, there's a scheme called the Tour Operator Margin Scheme, where if you're organising holidays, you do have to pay VAT on the margin that you make. So that's something that you do need to be aware of. So I just want to talk a bit about the fun stuff that we do as well, and how we can add value to your business. We do a lot of lobbying to government. So in 2011, we created the Fair Tax on Flying campaign, because one of the biggest concerns of us in the British Isles is that we have to pay the highest APD in the whole of Europe. So last year, over previous years, we did loads of campaigning, and yesterday we were successful that the C&D bans were abolished. So that means that consumers, business and leisure travellers can actually save over 200 million a year by that change. And this also extended to families, talking about the family market. In the autumn statement last year, we were able to, with some really good planning, we created this postcard campaign so that consumers, members, they could then lobby their local MP to say, look, I don't want to be paying for tax on my children's flights. I don't pay tax on clothing. I don't pay tax on food. Why should I pay tax on my flights? And we were really successful. So from the 1st of May, families are not paying any APD on children under the underage of 12. And then for next year, from the 1st of May 2016, they're not paying APD for children under the age of 16. Other things we do is insurance. Children, well, not children, adults, youngsters, they're not taking out insurance. In 2007, the government decided that the travel industry, they felt, was making too much money by selling insurance. So they regulated the market. They regulated the market so much that our members are finding it really difficult to sell insurance. With the post office, banks, they're offering insurance, but the insurance that they offer is not necessarily comprehensive. If you're going on a ski holiday, for example, your bank insurance doesn't cover winter sports. So we put this campaign together with the FCO, which is all about packing your policy, and it's targeting that audience. So, for example, did you know that over 24% of all travellers were uninsured? And then this increases that 48% of 16 to 24-year-olds weren't insured. So we're doing some campaigns targeting this audience. So, for example, you pay £500 from your IT bag, but why don't you pay £25 for insurance? you pay £100 for your trainers. Why don't you pay £25 in insurance? You're doing these adventurous holidays. If you're travelling and you hurt yourself, you break some bones, you haven't got travel insurance, the government doesn't bring you back home. So we're going out with this campaign, and again, through collaboration, we're able to target the HMRC, change the industry so it's not so regulated. Other things we do is health and safety. So whether you're doing a hotel, or you're doing your surf school or your cookery school, you've got to be aware of your health and safety considerations. So we do some booklets to help you procure hotels, things like that. What are your health and safety responsibilities? What do you do? Say you've got a hotel, you've got a pool, you need to make sure that your pool is safe. Unfortunately, a hotel close to me at home, there was 2 people found dead following a weekend. That does not help the publicity of that hotel. So you've got to be aware of that. What is your responsibilities? So we do it for the members, and then we do it for the consumers. So a big one that you might have seen in the news is a lot of young men, unfortunately it is men, I'm not being sexist, they like to climb balconies. So they jump balconies, they get drunk, and what happens the next morning? They're found dead. So we do a big campaign saying booze and balconies don't mix. We've also done a big one about swimming. Everybody likes to go swimming on holiday, but actually, when did you last go swimming? Was it 12 months ago, your last holiday? So we've done a big campaign saying, don't overstretch yourself, be honest about yourself. How often do you go swimming? So we do all that good stuff. It goes out to the consumers, increases the profile of in the industry in a positive way, and it also increases the profile of ABTA members. Other things we do is that when you're managing a travel company, you're beset by a lot of outside obstacles affecting your businesses. That can be coach crashes, that can be fire, protests, airstrikes. You've got the Concordia disaster here. So what do you do? So we offer a crisis and management service, how to help that crisis management plan. And we have 24-hour operations bulletins that give updates. So this helps members manage their businesses. So that's the key service we offer. Something that people don't know is we do a lot of child protection. So this can be anywhere. This can be in the UK, it can be overseas. We work with tour operator resort staff. We work with hoteliers, because unfortunately you do find child protection issues. So parents, hardworking, they want that holiday. There might not be a kids club. They drink too much. The children are left unattended. Or you might find there's some abuse. You might find some domestic abuse. How does that tour operator manage those issues? Well, so we do a child protection policy to assist the tour operator so they can manage that effectively. And also by doing that, by going out that, saying that to consumers, it's reflecting that we do take our industry seriously. Going back to a bit more of the fun side, don't ignore the sales and marketing. We publish travel trends, telling customers what is the in-place to go. And that is a way that you can regain loyalty by, you've got this good upmarket customer, they've got a disposable income, where do they want to travel to next? How can you add value to your own propositions? So in 2015, you might promote particular excursions. Well, if you're finding that you want to attract that person the next year, why don't you add something different? So the key trends for this year actually is that, did you know The Sound of Music is 50 years old this year? Did you know that Frozen, I'm sure if you've got a few grandchildren or children and they keep singing that song, but Norway is doing particularly well. People want to see where Frozen was created. So we've published these trends, and it helps our members use the insight to maintain their loyal customer and to sort of give them the customer the knowledge that they've got this expertise, and it's endorsed by their trade association, ABTA. Other things that we do, and something that you can do in your own businesses, is use social media to your advantage. So in this culture at the moment, people want bragging rights, they want to stay to the most latest restaurant, they want to be leaders going to that restaurant, they want to be seen to stay at that hotel. You've got some great stuff here in Northern Ireland. The causeway will look fantastic on a picture on Facebook, with the crashing waves and everything going around you. So do not be shy in using social media, but you have to have a bit of caution with social media though, because people love to complain on social media. So you you do need to have the skills to be able to take that complaint off social media really quickly and effectively. These are snippets that we provide on our website. So the first one, right over here to my right, is promoting the benefits of booking early. So the benefits of booking early to the consumer is they can manage their budgets, they know what they're getting, and often they can get good discounts. Other thing is, why book with an ABTA member? Every ABTA member is regulated. They have to have a code of conduct. So that means that they have to provide really good service. So that adds values to the customer. If they know that their service is not good enough, then they can complain to us. At the moment, trading standards are not focusing on the travel industry. So if a customer's got a complaint, it's not being heard. And then we're doing another one where it's sun. You've got a bit of sun there and a bit of ski as well. This is where we are. We've done some social media training to members over the last year. Twitter is a good way to communicate your key messages, and you'll be amazed how you can get it retweeted, you can go to a bigger audience. Google Plus is really good to increase your search engine optimization on Google. So even if you might not know it yourself, you might have some friends, or you might even have some children who are on Google Plus who can help you put your company on there, and then your search engine optimization goes up. Facebook is fantastic to reflect your product. If you get as many likes as you can, that's a way of endorsing your product, again through social media. And you can see here we did the swing campaign on Facebook, we put it on LinkedIn. Another thing you can do, which is quite new, is Pinterest. Has anybody heard of Pinterest? A few of you, have you used it? Yeah, have you used it for weddings and things like that? No? Okay. It's a way that you put everything together on a virtual notice board, so you could have a Pinterest site for your company which will promote all the different brands that you endorse or you like, so that add value to your business. And then you've got videos. We have quite a few YouTube videos on our website, and it's a way of bringing your product to life. So thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to take some questions. So really, the key to success we see is just doing your research. You need to be aware of the risk. You need to be able to manage it. You need to think about your liability. What is your legal position? Financial as well. You don't want to be stung by VAT. And then think about the consumer regs. But really, when you're talking about sales and marketing, your sales and marketing needs to be specific. You need to get it to work for you. And you need to create that unique selling point and a point of difference from you and your competitors. Thank you.